Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Woodgate to my Southgate. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Oh, Justin. How are we doing?
We're good. We are, we're chipping away. How's Ryan? You've got the post-holiday blues yet? Are they kicked in?
They kicked in ages ago, mate.
You're just throwing yourself into Euro stuff.
Yeah, well, I think throwing myself straight into the Euros has really helped with everything, because while I was on my travels, I was sorely missing out on the football, because I was looking on social media and everyone was talking about 3 games a day.
You missed the
problem was I missed all of the group stages when it was actually entertaining.
Yeah.
And so people were talking about how, it's great having a game at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Is that right?
It was 2, 5, no. Oh my God. It was 3,
it was
5,
something
3,
like that,
5 and 8 or something. Yeah. The unemployed slot was the peak of pinnacle of my existence. It was it was 2 p.m. Yeah, 2 p.m. kickoffs were just dreamy.
But what happened is, because of the time difference, all those games kicked off perfectly as I was going to bed. So I didn't see any football until the knockout stages, really. But, that's fine with me. I've got to the knockout stages, probably missed the most entertaining bit, but here for the business end, I suppose. Just in something that always happens around this time of year, well, in the summer of every even year, I should say. I wanted to ask you about what your thoughts are on pint throwing, because I've been to every England game out to the pub for the knockout stages, and I have been drenched in so many fluids over the past couple of weeks. It's been quite astonishing. What do you make of pint throwing?
It's do you want me to be really blunt and honest?
Yes, absolutely. That's why I asked you.
It's proper meathead behaviour, isn't it?
It is. It does seem like, first of all, a waste of a good beverage, and second of all, just enjoy the goal. What possesses you to launch your pint across a room? Yeah,
don't get me wrong. If it's in the moment and it just takes you, then go for it. 2018 was the pinnacle of pint throwing. That's absolutely acceptable. But we
didn't do it before that, did we?
No.
Maybe because we didn't have anything to support before then.
True. Yeah, we didn't have any jubilation. But also we didn't have these large sort of gatherings like at Box Park and stuff, and other places that have done similar things. We didn't have that. And look, as I say, if it takes me in the moment, then fair enough. But if you pick up a pint and just throw it, just get in the bin. It's boring. Yeah. And no one wants to, no one wants to get covered in a pint. And also, you are right, it is a waste. Like I mentioned, Box Park, £9 a pint. I imagine it's down in London.
Justin, I was out in Derby at the weekend for the Switzerland game.
Yeah,
they were doing pints for £5.50, and they were still being launched across the place. £5.50 for a pint in Derby. It's outrageous.
Oh, right. I thought that was quite good.
No, for God, no. One thing I will say, though, is in the moment, it is quite spectacular seeing, alcohol being flung over your head. But then it's the moments afterwards where you're like, I now stink of cider. Yeah. And you're like, it was spectacular a few seconds ago, but now I'm really regretting it. But anyway, Justin, it is worth pointing out, I suppose, that we are recording this before the semi-final, England v Holland. So we have no idea how that game is going tonight, but I am going to the pub for that later. Hopefully, by the time people are listening to this, England will be into the finals. Fingers crossed. We'll say that much. But let's ignore the Euros, Justin. We're here to talk about Championship football. Welcome to the #1 Championship podcast, the second tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, we are not officially counting down to the new season just yet, ladies and gentlemen. Instead, you've got a news update for you today. In fact, it's mostly a transfer roundup is what it is. We're not going to discuss every confirmed deal here today, but we've had plenty cracking off. So we're going to bring you up to date with the latest big moves in the Championship and have a little chit-chat about all of that, Justin. So we'll kick things off with Hull City, who are losing Jacob Greaves and Jaden Philogene. Reports say they're set to join Ipswich for a combined fee of £35 million. So they're getting duly rewarded for it, Justin, but they're undoubtedly losing 2 brilliantly talented players, and that's undoubtedly 2 big losses for the Tigers, Justin.
Oh, 2 big losses is an understatement, isn't it? two of the most influential, or two of their most influential players last season, and they're going for £35 million. Maybe expected a little bit more for them both. You consider that Jaden Philogene was linked with Barcelona over the course of the summer. Wink, wink. It's a huge blow and a huge loss for Hull. I think me reading up on it a little bit more, Macauley said that they won't be able to spend all of that money or reinvest all of that money back into the squad because of covering FFP losses. It's a summer of concern for Hull. I look, losing Greaves and Philogene probably wasn't an inevitability. I maybe would have expected a little bit more for them both, but I think that when you combine it with the fact that they've lost Ozan Tufan, Jean-Michel Seri's been linked with a move away. They've got to replace really influential loan players from last season like Fabio Carvalho and Tyler Morton. It's a concerning period for Hull, I think.
I completely agree with you, Justin. I don't think you've fully gone in depth on how much of a concern things are now with them. Of course, Greaves and Philogene, I'm not sure it was inevitability that they'd lose both of them. I think one of them was definitely going to go. But for them to lose both of them, you've essentially taken away the two players who were by far Hull's best players last season. It is two massive blows. But then you also add in that they won't have next season Liam Delap, Fabio Carvalho, Anas Zarori, Tyler Morton, because they were all on loan. Ozan Tufan's left. Their first choice keeper in Ryan Allsop's gone. They've lost their 6 top goal scorers from last season.
Yeah.
And 10 of the 14 players who played the most minutes for them have also gone as well. That's an insane amount of talent, which is almost drained away in an instant, isn't it? So you're absolutely right. It's a massive, massive concern.
That's a lot of money to have to be reinvested to replace those players, not only in the loans but also, the talent. Jaden Philogene was a huge player last season. Was Hull's best and most attacking and most consistent player.
Just best
in
attacker.
The final third. Best attacker, most consistent player in the final third. And when he was missing through large periods, Hull were really feeling it. There was a lack of edge to games, and maybe that's why Liam Rossini drew so many games last season, and maybe why they missed out on the top 6. So, it was huge. And then Jacob Greaves, he's a leader. He's a ball-playing defender. He was one of the best centre-halves last season in the Championship. That's a big loss. And also, I think he made that Hull defence just look considerably better than maybe what it was. It's maybe a bit harsh, but he really was the shining star in a back four that doesn't boast a huge amount of talent. So look, it's an interesting strategy to take up. Maybe they needed to do it, Hull and Ilakali. Maybe it needed to happen because of FFP losses and a balancing of the budget of the squad. But to do it all in one window is, with a new manager in place in Tim Volter, it's a huge risk and a huge worry.
Yeah, and even though you're getting 35 million, you've already said they won't be spending all of that. But even then, with the funds that you've got, replacing players as talented as Greaves and Philogene is going to be incredibly difficult. But with the players that we've also mentioned going out the door as well, you're not just looking to replace star quality, you're also looking to replace strength in depth as well. So that's why this summer is now looking like a massive one for Hull. We all know Achon Charlie, the Hull owner, is very ambitious. So with that ambition in mind, they have got to have an absolute blinder of a summer window lined up, haven't they?
It's worth noting that it's not all doom and gloom, because Oscar Estupiñán's been recalled from his loan spell in Brazil.
Great.
And he had that August where he looked like he was going to win the Golden Boot 2 seasons ago. So look, we can criticise and be worried, but Estupiñán's back, baby. That's all that matters.
Great. I'm sure that's going to really make Hull fans.
I'm just trying to work out. I'm just trying to work out how many goals he's got to score to replace Philogene, Tufan, Carvalho, Connolly. 18?
He's basically got to have that August that you mentioned there, Justin.
Every month.
And every single month. One final thing I will say is, and I know we shouldn't be talking about Ipswich anymore because Premier League, but Philogene, Greaves, Amari Hutchinson, Liam Delap, Ben Johnson. They're staying up, Justin. They're doing it again.
It's a really good championship squad, isn't it?
Mate, that is my kind of transfer window. If I was assembling a transfer window, if this was Football Manager, I'd be assembling a squad like that,
Yeah.
and I would be chef's kissing all over that, because that is
Are they
filthy.
Are they going to be renamed the Tractor Tigers because they've just taken 3 players who played a lot of minutes for Hull last season?
Yeah, Liam Delap as well, who was, of
Yeah.
course, on loan. I don't know about that, but I really like those signings. I really, really do. While we're on Hull, it's worth a mention about the curious case of Ryan Giles. So Hull had the left-back on loan last season and had the option to make the move permanent. That's happened. They've signed him permanently. But he's still being strongly linked with a move to his former club, Middlesbrough, with Hull's own Achille Charlie saying if he wants to go, they'll let him go. Strange, though, isn't it, Justin? Because he could potentially move twice in the same transfer window. Doesn't happen very often, does it?
The old Didi Harman, isn't it? You know, when he...
I was thinking of Benica Fobe, because
Yeah,
he was in a
yes.
similar position a few years ago when he was on loan at Wolves, who signed him for 10 million and then sold him days later to Stoke for 12 million. So easy 2 million for them.
Yeah, good business. I don't know. I can't remember the fee that Hull would have signed him for to make the move permanent from Luton, but I can't imagine it being cheap on a championship level. And old Middlesbrough are gonna spend that. It's just a very curious one, isn't it? How good was that loan spell at Middlesbrough for Ryan Giles? I know he was very, very active in creating chances, and he was key for Borough. But I thought Lucas Encles was very good for Middlesbrough last season once he settled into that team. So he's going to have competition there. It just seems a bit of a weird one. If I was Ryan Giles,
Michael Carrick did get the best out of him, though, and he was fantastic for Middlesbrough a couple of seasons ago, wasn't he? So
he was. But I think the important thing is Ryan Giles has had a lot of loan spells. He's been to Rotherham, been to Coventry, obviously come from Wolves, he's been at Luton. He needs to settle.
Yeah, which is why Middlesbrough would be an ideal move for him if that does happen. Well, Hull clearly don't want him. They clearly want to try and make a quick buck on him from the sounds of it. Let's move on, Justin. Let's go to Millwall. They've signed striker Macauley Langstaff from Notts County for an undisclosed fee. The 27-year-old has been banging them in for fun at League Two and National League level, scoring 71 goals in 96 appearances for Notts County since signing for them a couple of years ago. Given what he's done in the non-leagues, Justin, it makes it an undoubtedly interesting signing, doesn't it? The question is, will he be able to translate his goals into championship goals? Is the thing here, Justin? What do you think?
Yeah, and will Millwall create as many chances as Notts County do to get him into double figures? Look, he's a natural goal scorer. I think that needs to be pointed out. Maybe he's too old to be the next Jamie Vardy, but no doubt the people who want to create a narrative are going to throw that name around. But he's got the ability, and he's blessed with the ability to sniff out chances. He scored 28 goals in League Two last season for Notts County. I think that's a pretty good step up. He's been very consistent in going from the Conference North with Gateshead to scoring goals for Notts County in the Conference Premier. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, and then into
National
League Two.
League.
National League, Conference Premier. What am I on about? This is in 2009.
I have no idea.
And then he's transferred that into the Football League as well, which is huge. It's just whether or not he's got the that natural habit of scoring goals to do it in the Championship. I think my only pickup and worry is that Notts County team under Luke Williams, so attacking, so bloody attacking, relentlessly attacking, Millwall or not. So yeah, it's an interesting one for him as well.
Yeah, well, it's certainly interesting for Notts County as well, because they just named him their captain last month, and he's already gone out the door already.
A last-ditch attempt to make him stay, if I ever saw one.
Yeah, probably. Well, look, his goal record at Notts County was unbelievable. I don't think there's any denying that. But I know a few Notts County fans, and having spoken to a few of them, none of them are gutted that he's going. I think most will tell you that he doesn't offer much aside from goals, and obviously goals are very important, but the point is, if he stops scoring, he could be a bit of a passenger. Now, you've got to say, he shoots an awful lot. He had 172 shots last season in League Two, which is the most by a player in a single League Two season since records began. So the question is, will he get as many opportunities in the Championship? Almost certainly not, especially in a Millwall side which created the fourth lowest XG last season. So I'm sceptical, and that's even before you consider that he's going to be in a Neil Harris team who are pretty much as Route 1 as it gets now in Championship terms. Langstaff is under 6 foot, I think I'm right in saying. So I'm not sure he's going to particularly flourish in a Neil Harris team. And look, if he was coming in and offering something different, as well as goals, I think I'd give this one a thumbs up. But it sounds like all he offers is goals. And there's no guarantee he will score them. That's why I'm not convinced about this move, Justin.
Yeah, I think I think maybe the way you phrased it might irk a few people. But I know you said that all he does is offer goals. That's League 2 goals. It's not Championship goals, is it? I think that's a big thing you've got to mention.
Exactly.
And as you say...
And think about it, Justin. How many players have we seen over the years who have scored shed loads of goals in Leagues 1 and 2, come up to the Championship and done nothing? The first player who comes to my mind is Will Grigg.
Yeah, Will Grigg. Freddie Eastwood, you got mentioned last week. He's another one, isn't he? I think as well as that, the profile of player he is, they signed Kevin Nisbet last summer, who's exactly the same profile of Langstaff, where he doesn't offer
very little as well.
It's done very little, doesn't offer a lot outside of the box. And yeah, that's about it. And they got Tom Bradshaw still contracted at the club. Maybe would have gone for a different type of player. But look, Neil Harris was, this isn't a dig at Neil Harris, he was managing in League 2 last season. He got a close eye on Langstaff. So maybe that is, that's the reason why the club pushed so hard for him. But deal's done. It's a low risk one in terms of finance, 700k. It's not a massive outlay. So if he's a success, he's going to bang them in. If he isn't, he'll probably be on loan at a League 1 club, probably Wrexham. Notts County. I've got money. I'd put money on him going to Wrexham next January.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either. Just in Watford, re-signing Moussa Sissoko. Yes, that Moussa Sissoko, the 34-year-old, is set to sign a 2-year deal to go back to Vicarage Road after leaving Nantes last month over in France. I was quite surprised by this, Justin, mainly because I nearly forgot he existed. But what do you think about this one?
Moussa Sissoko is one of those players that, he's in that age bracket where you completely forget he exists once he leaves the UK. Yeah. And you just think, just go to France and just play out his career. But no, he's back. He's back. He's got unfinished business in the top divisions in England. I think it's a tidy signing. He's an experienced player. I think that squad does need experience. He was a good servant at Watford, and he's not looking for I doubt he's looking for a paycheck because he's 34 years old. I think he's quite lucky to have been given a route back into such a high-profile league as a Championship. So I think that's a bonus. But he's captain material, which is a big thing. And Tom Cleverley's going to want that. Tom Cleverley played with him, so he probably knows him very, very well as well. So yeah, just a trusted old head in that team, in a young team, which I think is a positive.
He's certainly got experience. He's about to turn 35 next month, so he's certainly got experience. But he is coming off the back of a disappointing season where Nantes only finished 4 points above the relegation zone in Ligue 1, and I think we've spoken quite a few times, Justin, about how the standard of the bottom end of Ligue 1 isn't too dissimilar to the top end of the Championship, I suppose. But I looked at his underlying data from last season. Seems to indicate his best days are firmly behind him, which is not much of a surprise considering he is mid-30s now. But doesn't inspire confidence, I've got to say. I was quite surprised that they've given him a 2-year deal.
2-year deal's good. This is a hard one to turn down for Moussa Sissoko.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I don't know how much Watford are paying him. I don't think it'll be Premier League wages by any means, but the fact that they've given a 2-year deal to a guy who is turning 35 next month is interesting. It's got to be said. So I don't know. Has he still got the legs that he had? Because at one point he was a fantastic player. That's undoubtedly the case when he was at Spurs, for example. But 35-year-old getting a 2-year deal in the Championship when he is quite a big name is not something that's impressing me too much, I've got to say. So yeah, I'm not too sure about this one. Yes, he provides a lot of experience and he was good for Watford a couple of years ago, but yeah, I'm not looking at this, putting this down as one that I'll be looking forward to next season, I've got to say. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll talk about Watford's neighbours, Luton, who have made their first signing of the summer. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. So we're doing a transfer roundup of all the business in the Championship over the past week. And we've got a new one from Luton Town. Justin, they've signed midfielder Shandon Baptiste after he left Brentford on a free. The 26-year-old is their first signing of the summer. He spent 4.5 years in West London, helping Brentford get promoted, and then played 55 games for them in the Premier League, mostly off the bench. We spoke about him last month, Justin. So, having said that, what do you make of this move?
Yeah, I think with Ross Barkley going, and I'm not saying Shandon Baptiste is as good as Ross Barkley by any means, but the void of a creative midfielder, creative box-to-box player is necessary to replace. I think Baptiste will bring that.
Justin, hang on, he's not a creative midfielder.
No, I'm not saying he's a creative midfielder. He's a creative box-to-box player. He's a box-to-box player who brings an element of quality, of composure. He's not a goal scorer by any means, but he's a suave passer, and I think he's a player that Luton Town are going to absolutely need in that midfield department next season.
I spoke about him glowingly when we were discussing free agent last month, so much so that I said he could be a low-key signing of the season contender for whoever gets him in. So no surprise that it's Luton who have ended up signing him. What's tended to happen is, when Brentford have been trying to hold on to a result, trying to show up their midfield, they have brought on Baptiste as a sort of enforcer, and he's been trusted with doing that job for a long time, even though he's not been a regular at Brentford in the 4.5 years that he's been there. He has still had plenty of game time off the bench, and I still think you must be a bloody good player if you are being trusted with doing that job for a mid-table Premier League side. For such a long time as well. So while it's certainly not going to be a signing that dominates the headlines by any means, he is certainly going to be making a big difference for Luton in terms of solidifying that midfield. And he's a very intelligent player, only 26 as well, so he's got plenty of miles in the tank as well. I think he could be the unsung hero of Luton's season, Justin. I don't know if that's over dramatic in saying that, but I think he could be.
I think it's injuries, isn't it? If he can stave off injuries, I mean, if he'd have stayed injury free at Brentford, I think he'd still be there. He'd probably be a bona fide starter, because I think he had that potential when he first signed, double deal alongside Tarek Fosu from Oxford. And as I say, I think if he'd kept the injuries off, he'd still be playing the Premier League with Brentford. Not been the case. He probably needs a fresh start, and I think Luton are the pinnacles of giving fresh starts to players, aren't they? And I think Baptiste needs that, and I think he's going to go there. He's going to, as I say, add an element of energy, an element of composure into that midfield. It's going to be needed. And like you said, I think if he can stay injury free, he could be one of the signings of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, Sheffield United have made 2 signings. They bloody needed them, haven't they? They brought in Jamie Shackleton and Sam McCallum on free transfers after they left Leeds and Norwich, respectively. What do you think of Shackleton, firstly, Justin? I quite like the signing.
Shackleton's one of those players. He's a Phil Neville, isn't he? He's a Phil Neville. He's been played everywhere. He's been played absolutely everywhere, and I don't think anyone can really tell you what his best position is, because he's played a lot of games at right wing back for Leeds. He's typically a robust central midfielder, but really played more games at right wing back. Came through when Marcelo Bielsa was managing Leeds, which is a very good time to have come through as a player at Leeds. I just think with Shackleton, again, he's probably a bit like Shandon Baptiste, needs a fresh start. Spent a long time at one football club, been a squad player, been a bit part player, and I think going somewhere where you can try and rid yourself of that burden of playing for your hometown club, it can really help. But I don't think he's going to get what he needs at Sheffield United. Maybe he needed first team football. He's just a right-footed Ben Osborne, I think, would be the best way I can describe it.
Fair enough. What do you think he needs then?
I think he needs to go somewhere where he's going to be a first choice player. I don't think he's going to get that at Sheffield United. That being said, there's nobody at Sheffield United right now, so maybe he will be a first choice player. Yeah. But I just think maybe a club who are a little bit lower down. I know he was on loan at Millwall last season. A club like Millwall who
season before last.
Just clubs who are going to give him that chance to flourish. I think that's probably what he needed. But look, he might get that at Sheffield United. I'm just maybe a bit sceptical that he might.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he certainly offers a lot to a squad, doesn't he? Because he is so versatile, can play wherever you want him to. And he did quite well at Leeds, playing at right back last season. I don't think he'll be playing at right back or right wing back for Sheffield United, considering they've still got Jaden Bogle on the books. But, you know, if you're looking for someone who can fill in loads of gaps, Jamie Shackleton's your man. I think there may be a bit of a disappointment at Leeds that he didn't go on to become a first-team regular there, because he has been there for so long, hasn't he, and never really managed to nail down a spot in the first team, despite him having plenty of chances. But look, he's still only 24, and because he is so versatile, he works his socks off. Quite quicker to get around the park as well. You know, I think he can certainly offer Sheffield United a lot. So there's a chance for him to show here what he can do. And because Sheffield United, who knows who's actually going to be there come the start of the season, he may get more game time than they think, Justin. So we'll see. I think it could end up being a pretty smart move for Sheffield United in the long term. What about Sam McCallum, Justin?
Oh, we praised him extensively, didn't we? You know, we had him very high up in our sort of choice of free agents a few episodes back, and I think he's a player who, again, I think the thing with James Shackleton and Sam McCallum is they suffered a lot of injuries, and Sheffield United typically have suffered a lot with injuries. If their training ground is anything to go by, I don't know what goes on there, but a lot of players get injured. So to sign two players who have a bad history of injuries is quite a risk. But I think if you can keep Sam McCallum fit, I think you've got a very good attacking-minded, well, not attacking-minded, but just a very good all-round wing-back who's played a lot of games at Championship level. And I think, I wouldn't say he was unlucky to be released by Norwich, probably just needed a fresh start, but there's a player there. And it's a space that needed filling. Max Lowe released, Jack Robinson's probably going to play as a left-sided centre-half. They needed a left wing-back, and Sam McCallum offers that.
Yeah, they have got Reece Norrington Davis still on the books, but McCallum, I think, offers something different to that, because of course we spoke about him glowingly not long ago, didn't we, when we were talking about free agents who are available to Championship sides, didn't we? And we're talking about a guy here who played most of Norwich's games during their sublime form in the second half of last season, and it's a bit surprising that Norwich did let him go. Whether it was McCallum who instigated his departure, I'm not too sure, but if he's on the hunt for regular game times somewhere, then he'll probably get that at Sheffield United. He is still only 23, which I think promises a lot of value in the long term for Sheffield United. There's a lot of growing room for him. He's very solid defensively. He can be a lot better going forwards, but he could end up developing into a very good player for me. Whether that's with Sheffield United or whether they sell him on in the long term, there's a lot of promise there. So whether it's just about developing into that left wing back that he has showed loads of promise of early in his career when he has been at Norwich, when he had loan spells at Coventry, etc. There's a lot to work with there. It's just about making him into that player. And interesting that Sheffield United have been seemingly targeting young players, isn't it, Justin? They obviously have to press the reset button because, as we were mentioning last week, they've lost the likes of Basham, Egan, etc. It has been a bit messy so far, hasn't it? But do you think it is interesting that they're seemingly targeting young players like this?
Well, I think it's necessary. I think it was probably necessary 1 or 2 years ago, to be honest with you, because even when Paul Heckingbottom took him up, it was an ageing squad. It was an older squad which needed refreshing. It needed moving on from the really poor Premier League season, which is probably why they had another really poor Premier League season, because it was basically the same group of players. That being said, it's unsurprising because there's been a lot of uncertainty of ownership and therefore a lot of or a lack of movement in getting those younger players, newer bodies into the squad. But I think them targeting these younger players is a positive. It's just whether or not they're the required standard they need to be right now to get the club into a position where they're going to be fighting for Championship promotion. Not sure they are just yet.
I'm almost coming to the conclusion, Justin, that they're almost accepting that they're not going to bounce back at the first time of asking, based off the business that they've done so far. I don't think that's surprising considering how shocking they were last season either. I think there's almost a general acceptance that they've got to cut their cloth accordingly and just sign players who will help them in the long term. And look, despite that, I think the business that they've done so far and what they've been linked with doing is actually quite good. So while it's not kind of the signings that you'd associate with a side who have just been relegated from the Premier League, I think it's good signings with one eye on the future. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just more about Sheffield United fans potentially tempering their expectations until a takeover gets done. Justin, let's move away from Sheffield. Preston have signed Sam Greenwood on loan for the season from Leeds. The 22-year-old was at Middlesbrough last season. Local reports say there is an option to buy as well for Preston. He had moments of promise last season, didn't he, Justin? Also had plenty more moments of frustration. So what do you think?
Yeah, I can't remember it was September or October where he looked like a world beater last season.
I think it may have even been not November time, Justin. It was autumn time, wasn't it?
In around the autumn, there was a player who we thought was going to, really go on to big things, and there was that clause that Middlesbrough had, it was $1.5 million or something like that to make the deal permanent. Obviously opted against it, but I think what Preston are getting are a player that has so much potential to really take on, and I think Preston is probably the perfect club for him to go to, because there's no expectation of promotion or competing for promotion like there was at Borough. Sure, there's an ambition there, but the expectation isn't there. And there's the opportunity there to be the player that they're going to rely on in their final third as well, which again might get more out of him. I think if you're a player who's wanting to be a creative, attacking minded individual, you need to have a certain ego, certain arrogance, and I think being the main man in that final third will give him that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Justin. I think he needs to be somewhere where he is going to be the main man. And, well, he kind of did get that a bit at Middlesbrough at times. He was very poor in the second half of last season. I mean, in that spell that you were talking about around autumn time, he had a spell for... He was on fire, wasn't he? He got 7 goal contributions in 11 games. But then I think he got 1 goal contribution in the whole of the second half of last season, which goes to show how much he dropped off. Mm. But kind of symbolising how much he did drop off, Middlesbrough did also have the chance to sign him on a permanent after his loan spell for £1.5 million, which is nothing, really, is it, nowadays? And they didn't take it. So that goes to show how much he did drop off, despite him still only being 22. But the fact he is 22 means that if he does, start pulling up trees at Preston, he could still be quite some player. And I still think there's a very talented player in there. It's all about whether Ryan Lowe's the man to get the best out of him, really, isn't it?
Well, whether he is or not, I think is a question. I don't think you can put too much reliance on managers needing to get the best out of individuals. Sometimes it's up to the player to show up and do the business, because Sam Greenwood had the opportunity to do that last season at Middlesbrough and he didn't, or not consistently enough. And as I say, there was that massive drop off in the second half of the season. It's worth
saying as well, Carrick has a good record in his short managerial career so far of making young players take their games to the next level, and if you can't do that with Greenwood, then
yeah, well, that's the other thing. I mean, you only got to look at the impact that he's had on Riley McGree, who was an underwhelming squad player at Birmingham when he was on loan there, and then he went to Middlesbrough and he's been almost a creative genius when he's been fit to play for Borough. So, as I say, it can't all be down to a manager. It's got to be down to the individual. And I think, as I say, the variables of being that main man in that final third, creating that bit of an ego and arrogance might get the best out of him. Who knows? But yeah, to put it all on Ryan Lowe is probably a bit unfair. But he's got to create a system that gets more out of his creative players, which I don't think he did last season because they didn't create enough chances, which is probably why they ultimately missed out on the top 6.
Preston have also signed Iceland international Stefan Teitur Thordarson. The midfielder joins from Silkeborg over in Denmark and finished in the top 10 goal scorers in the Danish Super League last season. He was also part of the Iceland team who beat England not too long ago, Justin. So it would be interesting to see how he does. He's been a regular starter for Silkeborg over the past 3 seasons. So an interesting signing. I appreciate Preston trying to be a bit imaginative with their recruitment just now. I don't know much about Thordarson, but they're looking abroad, widening the net of players that they're looking at. So that's a positive, I suppose. Sheffield Wednesday have made their 7th and 8th signings of the season, and one is a familiar face. Brighton goalkeeper James Beadle has rejoined the club on loan after spending the second half of last season at Hillsborough. They've also signed striker Charlie McNeil, who's just left Manchester United. I was very impressed with Beadle last season, Justin, so I'm very happy that Sheffield Wednesday got him back.
Yeah, Sheffield Wednesday have had some goalkeepers over the years, haven't they? So I think to get in a high-profile young player, I think goalkeeper's the hardest position to replace at a football club. because I don't think there are a lot of top quality goalkeepers that are readily available right now, and well for a good price anyway. So I think to go to Brighton and taking Beadle, I think is a positive. As I say, he was there last season, which is a huge plus, because you'll know what Danny Rule wants. You'll know a lot of the squad. You'll settle in quick. There's none of that period that new signings need. So I think that's a positive, and I think it's a tidy signing. As I say, they've Cameron Dawson, Dre Wildsmith. There are probably more. David Stockdale. They've had David Stockdale. Didn't have David Stockdale. I made that one up, but they've had quite a few goalkeepers over the years who have not really set the world alight. I think James Beale's probably been the best one over the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, well, I don't think you're understating that, but just one thing you haven't mentioned there is you talk about how good he has been for Sheffield Wednesday compared to previous goalkeepers. He's only 19, which is absolutely balmy, isn't it? Sheffield Wednesday did have David Stockdale, by the way, but that's by the by. The fact that he's only 19 is ridiculous, really, because how many goalkeepers can you think who have been playing week in, week out at Championship level who are a teenager still? That it doesn't happen at all, really, does it? He is turning 20 next week, but still, for him to be so good at such a young age is quite unbelievable, really. And that's why I think this is Sheffield Wednesday's best signing so far. We've spoken a lot about the business that they've done so far. Obviously, it's quite eye-catching with the number of signings that they've made before the middle of July. But this is the best one that they've made for me, because I was very impressed with him last season, despite him being so young. Definitely an upgrade on Cameron Dawson. Brighton seem to rate him very highly as well, and we all know how good Brighton are at rating players. So he has all the makings to be a top-class keeper, and for Sheffield Wednesday to have him between the sticks next season, I think is really, really promising. Let's talk about one of the new boys in the Championship next season, Justin. Oxford. They've signed Idris El Mazouni from Ipswich. The 23-year-old midfielder has spent the last 2 seasons on loan at Leyton Orient and has cost the U's around £400,000. What do you make of this one, Justin?
Yeah, a really smart business by Ipswich to activate a clause in his contract to extend it by a year so they don't lose him on a free. So kudos there to Ipswich. Paid for Jaden Philogene. Stonks. Paid for Jaden Philogene and Jacob Greaves in numbers, that one did. But yeah, El Mazouni, I mean, I didn't watch a lot of League Two, but I know he was highly rated by the data nerds of the Football League followers, which is always a positive. I think he offers a lot more flexibility for Oxford's midfield. And I think their business as well from Oxford generally might not raise eyebrows or might not excite too many sort of bona fide Championship players, but they're signing some decent players in good age profiles, which is a huge thing, and they're doing it by not spending a huge amount, which has to really be lauded, I think. So yeah, I think it's a positive. He's been at League Two for 2 seasons now. He's got the jump up to the Championship, which is a big thing. But I think Des Buckingham, being the coach he is, having the experience with young players he's got, will allow those players to express themselves and settle in quick.
Yeah, well, I was talking about Oxford on Monday, wasn't I? I was saying that their signings so far have been a bit Rotherham-y, which is not a compliment at all. And I'll admit that. But I really, really like this signing because he was very highly rated by Leyton Orient fans, El Mazouni. He was well liked at Ipswich as well. May have even played a bit for Ipswich next season if they didn't get promoted. But he's a really good number 8. So I'm really really hot on this signing. I think it's quite an eye-catching signing for me, which perhaps won't register with a lot of people who cover the Championship. But I could easily see us looking at 400k in a year's time and say that was a bargain, because he's someone who I think has been ready to make the step up to the Championship for quite some time. And for Oxford to get him, I think is a really good, really impressive bit of business. Final bit of transfer news we'll talk about, Justin. In fact, we don't have to talk about it much, but it was just something that, I thought was quite nice, because Leeds have re-signed goalkeeper Alex Cairns. He left as a 22-year-old in 2015 and has gone on to be a regular for Fleetwood and Salford in the lower leagues. Even helped Salford beat Leeds in a penalty shootout win in the Carabao Cup last season. But it's just a nice little story that he's come back to Leeds as a 31-year-old. I'm sure he's probably not going to play much next season, but it's nice for him that he's back at the club where he came through, Justin. Are you going to give me this and say it's a nice one?
Yeah, it's lovely. Fulfills the academy quota, doesn't he? If Leeds play in Europe in
there
a
is
couple of years'
as well.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a cynical way of looking at it, but yes. That's probably also had a part of it. But I just thought it was nice that he's back playing for the club where it all started for him. And the final bit of news we'll discuss, Justin, which isn't transfer related. Craig Bellamy has decided to leave Burnley to become the new Wales manager. Now, the news broke around 12 hours after Scott Parker said Bellamy would be a part of his coaching staff for the new season. So a bit of an early own goal for old Scotty Parks, Peachy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the own goal was looking like a wine salesman in his press conference. But I'm not going to dig in on Scott Parker now. Craig Bellamy. I think it's a big loss
That for later in the season.
Yeah, I'll save it. I'll save it for the start of August. But I think it's a big loss for Burnley. I think when you retain coaching staff who have been a part of successful regimes, I think it's always a positive to have them on board, especially when you coming into a new squad and the style of play isn't too dissimilar. It is dissimilar, but not too dissimilar. I think it's always a blow. But yeah, I think it's a big move for Craig Bellamy. I would have loved to have seen him be Burnley head coach because he's a firecracker and you need that. He would have really, really pulled out some quotes for us, and now we've got old Scotty Parker and his bloody cardigans.
And his new floppy hair that he's got. Yeah, I was, of course, Bellamy was being linked with the permanent job, so I was very intrigued to see if he were to get that job, how that would go. Whether his departure was linked with him missing out on the job, I don't know, but I agree with you, Justin. I think this could be quite a big blow for Burnley because Bellamy was said to be a key figure under Vincent Kompany, and it was reported quite early on that he wasn't going to be joining Vinnie Kumps over in Germany. Having said that, whenever new managers come in, they always like to have someone in from the regime before, and Bellamy looked like he could have been the ideal man in that regard. So it could be quite a miss not having him around. It'd be interesting to see how that develops as the season goes on. And if Burnley do struggle, maybe we could look back at it and say not having someone like Bellamy around and losing him at this stage in the summer, maybe a bit of a blow.
Not the Scott Parker appointment being a disaster, but actually losing Craig Bellamy was the big catalyst for Burnley suffering back-to-back relegations.
Why are you saying that? Like you've taken the piss.
I'm taking the piss out of Scott Parker. You're just taking it to heart. I don't know why.
No, okay, whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a news roundup of everything going on in the Championship over the past week. Still loads of transfer news happening. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to get serious because next episode, that'll be on Monday. Justin and I will be each picking our top 5 signings of the summer so far in the Championship. And then from that point on, we're officially counting down to the new season, baby. Because I tell you what, it's not far away now. After the Euros are finished this Sunday, that'll be it. We are officially counting down to the Championship season. So just to give you kind of an update of where things are with us, next Thursday, we'll be doing part 1 of our episode, which always goes down well with the listenership. We'll be ranking every manager in the Championship. Part 2 will be the Monday after that. It always seems to go down well every single season, doesn't it, Justin? That's a slightly controversial list. After that, we'll be picking a key player for each Championship side ahead of this new season. That'll be a 2-parter as well. And then, would you believe it, it's nearly time for the new season to start. So we'll be making our pre-season predictions, and then it's our league table predictions. And then that's it. It's the start of the new season. I'll tell you what, it will come around quickly, won't it, Justin?
Like a runaway train, it is coming fast. As soon as the Euros finishes, that's it. We are hurtling downhill towards the new season. It is. I'm excited. I'm almost fatigued by football, but I'm getting a buzzing feeling back again.
Sorry, you've got a bit of a break now, Justin. I mean, we've had a pretty decent break over the Euros, and I just taking in and just being a fan. But we're back being the pundits again very soon, Peachy. And I hope you're bloody ready, mate. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I have been Ryan Dilks.
I have been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.